All right, can everybody hear me? Well, thanks for having me here today. You guys just heard a panel on food tech, and today I'm going to talk a lot more about plant-based foods. So I'll start with a question. Who here realizes that the biggest environmental challenge we have today is the way we feed people and our reliance on animals to feed the growing population? All right, so about half. So hopefully I can convince the other half, along with a solution for how we can fix that. So I'm Nick Halla. I'm the SVP of International at Impossible Foods, where I'm building our global business. And I'm going to talk about the mission of Impossible, and then really how we're addressing this. So I'll start out with our goal. We have one goal at Impossible. It is to create the world's most delicious meat, fish, and dairy foods the world has ever experienced, but all directly from plants. So our founder, Dr. Patrick Brown, spent 25 years of his career doing cancer, genomics, medical research at Stanford University. But he took a sabbatical in 2009, looking at where he could have the biggest impact on the world with the rest of his career. And he quickly realized that our use of animals as a technology was by far the biggest environmental issue. And as a biochemist, he believed wholeheartedly that we can create better products than animals can if we understand why consumers like them. So I'll take the story back about 12,000 years to start to 10,000 BC. So this is a depiction of the biomass, the weight of all wild mammals on Earth compared to the human population in 10,000 BC. And as you can see, we are a small speck. So I'll fast forward from here to 1976. And you'll see two things, or three things really. So wild mammal population decreases as you would expect. Human population increases. But by far, the biggest increase we have on the globe today is livestock. Now just go another 40 years from here to 2016. Now our livestock population gets even bigger. Human population grows. Wild mammals in the last 40 years have been cut in half. And it's all driven by our hunger for meat, fish, and dairy foods due to their low efficiencies of production. But it's not all grim. So my background, I grew up on a dairy farm. I know the system very well. I worked at General Mills, a large food company, for about 4 years designing products and manufacturing systems. But I left that because I was looking to do something much more sustainably global impact focused. And so I went into renewable energy, solar, biofuels, battery systems. Said I was never going to do anything in food again. But then I met our founder, Pat, when he had this idea, and I joined as his first employee to create a new system and a new way to think about food. And besides the ability for us to capture this with a better technology, Pat also realized this is a huge business opportunity. So if you look at the industry, so today, the global industry for meat, fish, and dairy is about a $1.7 trillion industry and growing quickly. By 2035, it's projected to be $3 trillion. And the impacts we're already having on the environment today with that system, we can't keep scaling it. But if you look at consumers don't care that their products come from animals. They're just looking for that taste, that deliciousness in food. And that was the insight that Pat had, is if we can create products that people like better, that's how we're going to change the industry over and how we've built Impossible. So for the last 7 years now, we have been building a team, a technology, our first product, and now driving the market awareness and the consumer movement behind this type of system and where we're going to go. So I'll start out with our team. In order to do something like this, we have to have a very diverse team. It's a combination of science from Stanford, National Institute of Health, tech, Google, Tesla, Zynga, Square, and food, General Mills, my background in food, Del Monte, Pepsi, Cisco. So we bring all these different diverse thinkers and leaders together to create a new way on how to do this. And when we started 7 years ago, the first thing that we needed to do was build a new platform for how to think about it. So in the first 2 years, we built a team of about 50 people, all scientists, looking into what actually makes meat, fish, and dairy foods so delicious. Then going to the plant-based world to find pieces that we could use to recreate that system and create better foods. And the platform is designed from the start to do anything an animal can do for food, but better. So ground meat, fish, chicken, cheese, eggs, dairy, really anything. And I'll use an example to demonstrate how this works. So when we started digging into meat flavor, meat aroma, we learned that it's extremely complex. Like when you put a steak or a burger on the grill, you smell and you taste thousands and thousands of different compounds that are all created as you cook. If we wanted to try to replicate that system and create a better system by looking at each one individually, it'd be very complex, costly, and definitely not scalable. But as a team dug deeper, they learned that there's one protein in meat that drives almost all the flavor chemistry as you cook. And it's a protein called heme. So you can think about this as whether you're a plant or an animal, heme proteins are essential for life. And in humans, we have hemoglobin in our blood, and it takes oxygen from our lungs to our muscles and our organs. In muscle, it's myoglobin, and one of the biggest differences between chicken and beef is the concentration of myoglobin. Chicken is very low, beef is very high. That's why you get much more meatiness in beef. And once we learned that drove all the flavor chemistry of meat, then we went to the plant-based world to find a better way to do this. And we use a protein called leg hemoglobin from legumes. It drives all the same flavor chemistry. We did the same thing for texture, taste, color, aroma, handling throughout the thing, which leads us to our first product. So in 2013, we decided that ground beef would be the first target product. We built hundreds and hundreds of different prototypes and launched it in 2016. And this is meat, made a better way. This is meat made from plants for meat eaters. And you're probably wondering, what's in it? So I talked a little bit about heme. So that's critical for flavor and aroma. Then you have to have that property where it goes from soft and formable to firm as you cook. And that's driven by potato protein. And so you can make a meatball, a dumpling, tartare, burgers, and you can really do anything with it. Then we have wheat protein that gives it the structure and the chew, and coconut that gives it the fat, that richness, and that juiciness you expect from a ground meat product. And we're making this better and better every day. So when we first did our prototypes, you could tell it wasn't from a cow. A year later, you do a blind taste test with meat eaters, and they saw it as meat. Now when we do a blind taste test with this, about half of meat eaters prefer us over meat from the cow. So we've caught up to the cow, and we're only getting better. And in the environmental side, it's much, much more sustainable. So the challenge with animal farming isn't what we produce out of it, it's the scale we use it at and the inefficiency. So cows are essentially a 3% efficient technology of taking plants and converting them into meat. And so that's why they use 30% of the global water supply, 15% of all global greenhouse gas emissions, and 30 to 50% of all arable land surface. And Impossible uses approximately 74% less water, 87% less greenhouse gas emissions, and 95% less land, which is probably the most critical. So now we have a product. We need to find a way to go to market. We need to find a way to educate. And so we could go to Whole Foods, Target, retail, places like that. But we needed to tell a different story that we can actually create better meat from plants. And this is not a veggie burger. So we went to the Meat Chefs of America. And in July 2016, we launched with David Chang in New York City at one of his restaurants. And David Chang is a chef who said he will never put anything vegetarian on his menu because his consumers don't want it. But as soon as he had Impossible, he saw this as meat, and this is where we have to go as a civilization. And so he wanted to be behind this. In the first year, we built up to about 30 restaurants with the top meat chefs of America. Then we started scaling. Once we had that credibility and that brand behind what we're doing, and over the last 12 months, we've went from 40 restaurants a year ago to now more than 3,500. And the consumers are pulling for this. Customers are seeing the value. And we just launched yesterday nationwide with a company called White Castle. So if you are familiar with the US market, White Castle was the first fast food burger chain in the US almost 100 years ago. And they're serving a $1.99 Impossible slider for the mass market mainstream. And we launched as a test market about 4 months ago, and it's been doing really well. So as of yesterday, it's now nationwide. And we can do that because we are adding value to the consumers, to the customers. So some of our customers are seeing a 30% increase on same-store sales, very high repeat, and the vast majority of our consumers are meat eaters. So we are hitting that target market that we have to have the impact that we need to. Our founder, Pat, often says that every time we sell a burger to a vegetarian, it's a lost sale. And it's not really a lost sale, but his point is that we need to hit meat eaters because that's where we need to change the environmental impact of the food system. And this story has also been picked up really through pop culture and media. And so there's a couple examples here. Ellen DeGeneres and Chrissy Teigen did like a 3-4 minute just conversation on Impossible and how good the product was on her show. We get inbound inquiries from press all the time because they want to hear more about the story, where we're going, why this matters. And the consumers feel good about eating the product. And so the story is continuing to gain traction as we grow. And to meet the growing demand driven by this, we opened up our first real production site a year ago today, and that's what helped us go from 40 restaurants to the 3,500 today. And this is in the San Francisco area where we're headquartered. And it took us from thousands of pounds of product a month to, once we get it fully scaled, well over upwards of 4 million pounds per month. But to put this in perspective, this is still tiny compared to the industry. So just in the US itself, the US industry for ground meat is about a 10 billion pound per year industry. And so this is a tiny, tiny fraction. So we've made this facility very easily scalable with very typical food production techniques so that we can take it throughout the US and globally. And we've had a global mission from the start. So early on, we started looking internationally, and especially at Asia. And 4 months ago, we launched in Asia. Asia is where 44% of the world's meat is consumed today and growing very quickly. And so we went to Hong Kong. This is a great intersection of culinary, culture, and has some of the top chefs and some of the top restaurants in the world. And we followed a similar playbook. We went to places where we could build credibility as a great food, and a great cultural icon. And one of the beauties about coming to Asia is the US is actually very heavily a burger market. In Asia, we probably are serving 50 to 100 different dishes just in Hong Kong and Macau. Dumplings, meatballs, samosas, really anything you can do with ground meats, we've seen. And it's been really fun to watch how creative people are, and it's doing very well. So, and we do continue to plan to expand. This is a global mission. Our mission is to be a better food for every meat, fish, and dairy food people eat today, all from plants to every consumption point in the world. So we started our global mission in Hong Kong and Macau, but we will be spreading throughout Asia very quickly over the coming years and throughout the whole world, along with launching more and more products as we go. And so the platform is developed to do anything animals can do, and we have prototypes of many things like fish, chicken, cheese, and steak, and many of those will be coming. And since we're in Singapore, I'd be remiss not to mention the investor side, including one of our biggest investors here in Singapore, Temasek. So we've been able to build a very powerful, very mission-based, growth-oriented set of investors that are here for what we're doing as a company, but also for the huge financial return that they expect to get from this. And so we have a great group of investors here. So with that, I'll wrap up and say, we're Impossible. We're a technology platform for the future of food, and that future is definitely looking very bright. Thank you.